And the biggest challenge for your new president, when we think about how we're going to employ more people here, is going to be also technology, because artificial intelligence is here and it is accelerating. And you're going to have driverless cars, and you're going to have more and more automated services. And that's going to make the job of giving everybody work that is meaningful tougher. And we're going to have to be more imaginative. And the pace of change is going to require us to do more fundamental reimagining of our social and political arrangements to protect the economic security and the dignity that comes with a job. It's not just money that a job provides. It provides dignity and structure and a sense of place and a sense of purpose. And so we're going to have to consider new ways of thinking about these problems, like a universal income, review of our work week, how we retrain our young people, how we make everybody an entrepreneur at some level. But we're going to have to worry about economics if we want to get democracy back on track.
Now, one of the answers, it seems to me, is a guaranteed annual income, a guaranteed minimum income for all people and for all families of our country. And it seems to me that the civil rights movement must now begin to organize for the guaranteed annual income, begin to organize people all over our country and mobilize forces so that we can bring to the attention of our nation this need and this something which I believe will go a long, long way toward dealing with the Negro's economic problem and the economic problem which many other poor people confront in our nation.
There will be fewer and fewer jobs that a robot cannot do better. Okay. What to do about mass unemployment? This is going to be a massive social challenge. And I think ultimately we will have to have some kind of universal basic income. I don't think we're going to have a choice.
Universal basic income.
Universal basic income. I think it's going to be necessary.
So it means that unemployed people will be paid across the globe.
Yeah.
Because there is no job, machine, robot is taking over.
That's simply and I want to be clear that these are not things that I think that I wish would happen. These are simply things that I think probably will happen. And if my assessment is correct and they probably will happen, then we need to say, what are we going to do about it? And I think some kind of a universal basic income is going to be necessary. Now, the output of goods and services will be extremely high. So with automation, there will come abundance. There will be almost everything will get very cheap. I think I think we'll just end up doing a universal basic income. It's going to be necessary.
The amount of change we're going to see over the next 5 years, 10 years, will dwarf everything that's happened over the last 30. Now we're introducing artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, neural networks, et cetera. So, and what that enables is the automation of automation, right? And so the people who were writing software, particularly at the lower end, unless you're doing these advanced things, they're gone, right? The people that
because the software's writing itself.
It's doing itself, right? It's just math, right? All the people doing basketball analytics and saying, okay, we're going to, this is what you do in this situation. Well, you can't anticipate, you can't look at every possible iteration. People can't do that. There aren't enough people, there's not enough time. Machine learning can look at every possible and consider every possible situation.
So it looks at the statistics of the shots, looks at where the players were, looks at what happened the last few games, and can play chess against it and see the reaction.
A programmer back in the day, so when I was writing code, it was the algorithms were if this, then that.
Right.
XOR, whatever it may be, right? But you had to guess, right? You had to use your best instance. And then it got smarter and smarter and smarter, and libraries to do bigger and better things. All that is being automated. And so now you have to know how to use that stuff. So either software works for you or you work for software, and once the software takes over, you're gone, right? So unless you understand that, you don't understand that the nature of work is changing, the nature of employment is going to change.
We should have a society that measures progress not just by economic metrics like GDP, but by how many of us have a role we find meaningful. We should explore ideas like universal basic income to make sure that everyone has a cushion to try new ideas. We're all going to change jobs and roles many times, so we need affordable childcare to get to work and healthcare that's not tied to just one employer. And we're all going to make mistakes. So we need a society that's less focused on locking us up and stigmatizing us when we do. And as our technology keeps on evolving, we need a society that is more focused on providing continuous education through our lives.
I've read Andrew Young's book, War on Normal People. I have to say I didn't realize till I read it myself, and now I've read other books about it. This gentleman is correct. We have a tsunami coming, an economic tsunami coming with automation. You know, once you get it, you get it. Like you see a drugstore and they used to have 10 clerks. Well, now they only have 2 clerks because you're doing it on the computer. But the clerks who lost their job at the drugstore, there's not another drugstore they can go to get a job because the other drugstore has gone automated too. We have 11 states or 9 states. Either 9 states or 11 states, forgive me, I can't remember, where the main industry is trucking. We're going to have driverless trucks. What is someone who's been a trucker for their entire life supposed to do? You can't say, well, job training programs, we spent millions on job training programs, and they have a dismal record in terms of finding jobs for people afterwards. We have an economic tsunami coming. And one of the things I learned from reading one of those books, it was very interesting for me. I used to think that Milton Friedman, because he was the one back in the 50s at the University of Chicago, that he was the one who'd come up with this whole trickle-down economic theory thing, unleash the market forces, get government regulation out of our face, and I thought, oh, he's the bad guy who started all this. Well, guess what? He also supported universal basic income because he knew you have to have a counterbalance. You can't just let the market go if you don't also have that. So this is an idea that's picking up steam. I hope that you will listen to, I know Andrew Yang will be one of the people that you hear. I hope you will.
Economy, what's your administration going to do about automation and about workers that might have their jobs?
Yeah, this automation revolution is a real thing. And I think it's creeping up on Washington, and they're not really paying attention to how much of an impact this is going to make on all of our lives. And I look at it in 2 ways. There are going to be jobs lost because of it, and that's a very serious thing that we need to address. We also have to look at the opportunity for improving people's quality of life and the kinds of jobs that are available through automation. I really like the universal basic income proposal. I think this is something that has a lot of potential in being able to help us not only through this transition of automation, but really as we look at empowering people, every one of us. The fact that we're in a place where most Americans are a $500 emergency away from total disaster is unacceptable. Because that $500 emergency can come in a moment, and when you least expect it. It's one family member's accident and need to go to the ER. Things that you can't control, things that are unexpected. So I'm looking into this, but I really like UBI for that very reason, that it provides that freedom and that opportunity for people to not just be chained to their job because they can't survive without it, but to say, hey, here's a way that you can be empowered to pursue the work that you want to do, to pursue the education that you want to, and to use your time as you choose.
Have you thought about the idea of universal have you thought about the idea of universal basic income as one thing that might be in the policy mix to deal with the rapid transition in the economy?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is less responsive to that kind of spiritual problem I'm talking about, but the income problem won't go away, and so we've got to look at that. I think that it's worth taking seriously. There's an experiment underway now in Stockton to see what it does. I know there are many times that we've been sitting around the table working on some kind of elaborate policy contraption to do something like boost third grade reading levels, when a lot of evidence would suggest that by far the simplest and most effective and cost-efficient way to do it is just give the family a little more cash, because it turns out not being poor is one of the best things that can help you make it to third grade reading level, because of nutrition or stability or whatever it is. There are different ways you can structure it. I'm attracted to structures that connect it to work, but also have an expansive version of what work is, especially if some of the physical, repeatable tasks of manufacturing are being automated away. Let's give a little more regard to things like caregiving and raising children that are absolutely work. They're just not in the formal kind of economy, the way that they're traditionally being compensated. So I think with a richer and thicker understanding of what work is, some kind of relationship between a guaranteed income and work, and some kind of structure that makes it equitable, but which might be along the lines of expanded tax credit or even the negative income tax idea that first got floated in the 70s.
And in the process, there's a lot of people who I think feel like they're being left behind, because we're in the middle of something else going on here. Nothing to do with Donald Trump. We're in the middle of what I'd call, other people call, the fourth industrial revolution. Is there going to be middle class where, Moore's Law, the IT, the way we're walking, artificial intelligence? Look what's happened with all the retail jobs that got lost because of Amazon. Now people go to Amazon, and so all across the country, a couple 100,000 people lost their jobs. And people are worried. Truck drivers I talked to are saying, well, they're going to automate trucking. I know, and I'm not going to have a job. I'm 52 years old. I'm making $80,000 a year, busting my neck. And so,
what's the answer to that?
The answer is we've got to talk to them and tell them there's ways to do this. The way we can do this is, first of all, acknowledge. My dad also had an expression for real. He said, Joey, I don't expect the government to solve my problem, but I expect these to understand my problem. So you go out and you say, look, these changes we can mold like we've done every other major technological revolution, going all the way back to the cotton gin and the Luddites back in England in the early 1800s. And what we have to do, though, is we have to let them know there's things for example, we have to have continuing education.
Nobody knows exactly what the impact of robotics and automation will be. But it's clear we're seeing it already. I mean, there used to be in Detroit and all over this country where you had automobile manufacturing. They're now producing more cars with far fewer workers, and that trend will only continue. In terms of transportation, we have millions of people today who make their living by driving a truck or a taxi cab or using a car. The day will likely come, I suppose, where we'll have driverless trucks and cars. What does that do to the millions of people who earn their living now? And I think the fundamental issue that has to be dealt with is that technology is not a bad thing in itself. But technology cannot simply be used by the owners of the technology. It's got to be used to benefit all of our people. So if we replace a dangerous job with a machine, that's a good thing. That doesn't mean you simply displace the worker and throw him or her out on the street. And that raises the question of basic income for everybody and so forth. So it is an issue that's not gotten the attention that it deserves, but it's hovering in front of us, and we have to deal with it.